Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. It's Wednesday morning. Hey, a good hump day to you, especially if you're Bill Clinton, because he always likes to get in there and celebrate his hump day. Have you noticed that about Bill? Julie Gunlock?
Oh, yeah.
Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas, who knows everything there is to know about the Clintons. I'm going to talk about the Clintons a lot today.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to put everything
while.
in perspective.
That's right.
All the stories about Trump and what another he could face over 100 charges by the time Election Day rolls around.
Yeah,
so we need to remind everybody of the Clinton family, and by the way, the Biden family. 7:05, Matt Schlapp. Yesterday they announced the American Conservative Union ratings. We'll talk about who's first in Congress with regard to conservatism and who's worst. Then at 7:35, Hans von Spakovsky about Arlington doing away with ranked voting for now. Funny how they put ranked voting in to get through the primaries so they can all get their nominations for re-election, and then they said, we're done with this now. No more ranked voting. Yeah, that works.
Principles.
By the way, I was speaking of that principles because we've talked about ranked voting, and I think that it's horrible and terrible. In a general election, if a political party, because a lot of people said, Republicans used ranked voting during the nomination process in 2021 for governor, and you're right, they absolutely did. And here's my answer to you: if a political party like the Republicans or the Democrats want to use ranked voting or other means to determine their nominees, that's up to the party to decide. If the party wants to do that, it's their party. They can cry if they want to. If the Republicans or the Democrats from this point forward want to do away with primaries and caucuses and just use a convention of delegates to elect their nominees like they did in the old days before the world of primary, let them. It's their political party. Political party is private and separate from the jurisdiction of how we, the people, through our government and civic institutions, determine who wins an election. So if the Republicans want to use ranked voting, let them. If you don't like it and you're a Republican, change the party leadership to change those decisions. But when it comes to an actual general election, our government should have Alaska is completely insane with their ranked voting.
Yeah, and it's interesting because what you're saying here is, look, let people decide on the local level what they want, how they want to determine their nominees.
Well, at the party
level.
Yeah.
Which is even more local.
Yes.
But you don't get that nuance often. It's all in. It's
right.
all, we have to do it this way on every level.
Yeah.
Or nothing. And so I agree with you. I mean, if a party wants to do it that way, that's fine. But I do see the danger in the national.
Well, it is funny that Arlington, made all this thumping their chests about how great this ranked voting is going to be. They do their primary and they say, yeah, maybe not. As we head to the general. Not that it's going to matter, because in Arlington, generally speaking, if you get the Democrat nomination, you got it. But anyway, we'll talk to Hans von Spakovsky, not just about what Arlington has done, but also how that's going to affect other things. And then also about how, Trump's talking about ballot harvesting and how Republicans need to. A lot of discussion within the Republican Party is how we engage in the same practices Democrats have been engaging in. We're going to ask Hans about that, too. Is that the right way to go? How do we go about doing that? What's his opinion of what Glenn Youngkin's initiative is here about making sure Republicans do early voting and all that stuff? Because in a perfect world, we should have one election day.
But ballot harvesting is illegal in Virginia. Isn't that true?
In Virginia it is, yes.
Yeah. And are we going to change that? Because, I thought the Democrats were doing that in Virginia.
Well, that's the thing. It's illegal, and they're doing it, and no one's enforcing the law. And so do we say, well, since they're breaking the law, we should break the law too? Or
we should change the law.
We'll cheat as just as much, or enforce the law.
Or enforce the law.
The law.
That's a novel concept.
But all of this is sort of a background noise right now, and an analysis and a breakdown of where we are with regard to our elections, and that's why Hans will be a valuable voice joining us. It's all background to what is happening in real time to President Donald Trump, and what's happening to President Donald Trump as he runs for election in 2024 is that the media and the Democrats and Never Trumpers and the institutions of justice at the federal level, be it the FBI or the Justice Department, are tampering with the 2024 election.
Yes.
They are doing whatever they can to get involved in your ability to elect who you want as President of the United States. And yesterday, indications are that Donald Trump will now be indicted with relation to the events of January 6th. And that is election tampering. That is meddling with our election at the highest level. And let's be clear here. There's a very real reason why they're doing this. Because you would think, oh, God, come on. We've seen January 6th. We know. For God's sake, we sat through 2 years of a television show where, Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi was going to throw everything they had out there so that you know exactly what Donald Trump did with relation to January 6th. So it's all out there. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing secret. And there's no crime. There is no crime that you may disagree with President Trump's language
when you say they laid everything out, they laid everything out that would make Trump look bad
without any defense.
Right,
that's correct.
That's exactly right. What I'm saying is they didn't release the videos. That came when those were released to Julie Kelly,
right,
and John Solomon.
Right.
I mean, we didn't see any of that stuff. So at the end of that show trial, there's nothing.
That's right, because Lord knows we would know.
Yes,
if there was something that would obviously show that Donald Trump violated the law as in some way is guilty of criminal conduct, that you may disagree with his behavior, you may disagree with his language, you may disagree with the timing of his announcements, you may disagree with the tone of his speech beforehand, you may go ahead and disagree with all those things. Guess what we do here in a constitutional republic? You disagree with one politician's behavior and what he did, then you don't vote for him and you vote for his opponent. That's how we settle these matters. You don't just decide, okay, 3 years later guess what? If Donald Trump was guilty of federal crime with regard to January 6th, why did it take 3 years, the month before the first debate in the Republican nomination, to arrest him, to indict him?
Yep.
Why did it take so long? Lord knows it didn't take you long to get the grandma who walked through the open door of the Capitol and throw her in jail without any hearing or without any day in court. But it took you this long. Why did you wait until literally weeks before the first debate in the Republican primary? Why did you wait until Donald Trump was a bona fide nominee? And the reason is because this is not about the law. This is about targeting the top nominee prospect for the Republican Party who is running against the man who's currently sitting in the White House. And why? Why? You would think that the fake indictment that New York came against Donald Trump would be enough with Alvin Bragg. You would think that the fake indictment over the documents would be enough. You would think that the pending fake indictment that's coming out of Georgia, again, just months before the primary process, would be enough. Why is this one so important? Well, I'll tell you why. It's all about the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment, which was voted on and ratified after the Civil War, says that any person who is engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States cannot serve in federal office. This was specifically about the people who were involved in the Confederacy. These are specifically about people who were part of the rebellion against the United States of America during the Civil War. It's obvious that that's what it was for. It's obvious that's what the 14th Amendment was about. If President Trump is charged and indicted and, God forbid, possibly convicted,
he's done,
of some kind of insurrection, even if it takes years for him to appeal it, he is constitutional. You could make the argument, and they certainly will make the argument, that the Constitution and the 14th Amendment prohibits him from holding federal office.
He might as well have been born in Mexico. I mean, it's just, you're not...
Like Ted Cruz. No, wait, that was Canada, I think. And by the way, I think that's a misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment.
Do you?
I think that I do. I don't think, because I think the 14th Amendment was obviously about the Civil War. And potentially another civil war that could happen in the future, but not the events of January 6th. I don't think that Abraham Lincoln had in mind what occurred on January 6th as, oh, yeah, that's what we're talking about when we write the 14th Amendment. That said, it's never been tried. It will have to be appealed. It will take years for this to be resolved if the Democrats try to do this.
And he'll be 90.
And it doesn't matter at that point.
Right.
That's why I'm saying this is election tampering.
And this is his last chance. They know this is Trump's last chance.
All right, we're going to get into some details here. We're going to get into how the media covered this yesterday, what these legal troubles actually portend for Donald Trump, whether it's going to affect the primary. I don't think it's going to affect the polls. I don't think it's going to affect people's opinions, but it might affect your ability to even vote for him. And we'll get into all of that stuff in just a moment. But first, it's raining out there. It can be dangerous at times. Trust me, I know. It's
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Need a new roof? Honor, respect, and trust your home with Valor. Visit valorhome.com.
On the next Vince Colonnade Show, the IRS whistleblowers speak. Join us to break down what we learned. 3 o'clock here on WMAL.
If you notice recently, President Trump went up in the polls and was actually surpassing President Biden for re-election. So what do they do now? Weaponize government to go after their number one opponent. It's time and time again. I think the American public is tired of this. They want to see equal justice, and the idea that they utilize this to go after those who politically disagree with them is wrong.
Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy telling the obvious truth that this does actually end up helping President Trump politically.
Yeah.
But polls aren't ballots. And if there are states that determine that because of this indictment even, this interpretation of the 14th Amendment might preclude Donald Trump from even being an eligible candidate for a federal office, then it won't matter. But again, that will be challenged. It will be a legal mess. It will go forever. And in the meantime, we have an election to hold here, and that this is absolute tampering. Also, by the way,
doesn't this prevent him from talking about certain things?
Well, if there's a gag order
Yeah.
that the judge puts in, what's he supposed to do to try to defend himself
Right.
in the media or as he's campaigning? If a voter says, "Hey, what about this thing?" I can't tell
talk
you.
about it.
Can't talk about it.
Wow.
Also, by the way, he could be, when all is said and done, facing over 100 charges.
Yeah.
At the federal or, in the case of the New York charges, at the local level. How is the man supposed to properly defend himself? He has the right to defend himself. How can he defend himself and still run for office? And, of course, the answer from the Democrats or from the media or from the Never-Trumpers is, well, then he should just drop out so he can
That's
defend
right.
himself. Because
See how that
that's
works?
what they want.
Yes.
That's the whole point. Does anyone believe that if he weren't running for office, that this wouldn't be happening right now?
Right.
And again, this is about January 6th. It is now July 19th, 2023.
Yep.
This is 2.5 years later, after the entire show trial, as you properly deemed it. If there were going to be criminal charges against Donald, why is Donald Trump the last person to be charged with regard to January 6th? They levied charges against people immediately. They've already had trials and convictions of people, in many cases unjustly, I think, of people who were involved in January 6th. And yet the ringleader, the man who's mostly responsible, solely responsible for it, you wait until the end to bring charges against him. Why? Because look at the date. We're in the middle of the election now. This is election tampering.
Well, again, Curtis Hoke yesterday said Jake Tapper's CNN show has been on for 26 minutes, and all 26 minutes have been about Donald Trump. Only 2 minutes and 56 seconds focused on Ron DeSantis, right? I mean, this is what the media loves. They love this. They love this show trial.
Well, to be fair, we've been on for 14 and a half minutes, and all we've talked about is it is kind of a big story.
Fair enough.
But we've still got 3 hours and 45 minutes ahead of us. But let's talk about how CNN has covered this, because boy, did they really get to the bottom of it, the crux of it. You know, you have to fill all those hours where you're obsessed with Donald Trump and beating the drum that Donald Trump is a federal criminal. You have to fill it with really important data like this.
Turns out even Jack Smith can't resist a $5 footlong.
Ugh.
That's according to what we see right there. New and exclusive CNN video of the special counsel at Subway, declining, though, to respond to reporters' questions about today's big news.
Julie, it was I know the dramatic music of Jack Smith going to get a Subway sandwich, but it was exclusive video.
I know,
Julie.
I know.
New
coming
and
out of that swinging door, swinging his big old foot long. Okay, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to go there.
Sandwich.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you think he got a 12-inch spicy
We should
Italian?
move on. What is wrong with me? I didn't even mean
A
that.
target letter sent to the former president of the United States. CNN's Evan Perez was there trying to track down the special counsel. I won't ask you all of the less important things about what he got and how he paid and all that. But what is important is the imagery here. They clearly wanted us to see him, and that.
I would love to pull on that. They clearly wanted us to see him. Did they call you? Did they give you a heads up? What does that mean
is this
exactly?
A pap call? Like you call the paparazzi.
That's right.
Meghan Markle.
Hey, Jack
I will
Smith,
be at the organics.
I don't know this for sure, but you might want to have a
Yeah,
camera
what's
out
that
in
all
front of the
about?
Subway on K Street because you might see a certain special prosecutor.
I also love the idea that she goes, I'm not going to ask you less important stuff like, what did he get on his Subway? You know, she was dying to ask what his order was, because this is what the mainstream media has become.
But listen, we can forgive Dana Bash at one moment just having to do a quick filler. Listen, we do critter news now and again, although that's hardly filler. I mean, critter news is the crux of the foundation.
That's why I'm here.
Of our program. But I'm sure that was just a one-off with Dana Bash, and they were just trying to, round things up. Certainly it wasn't part of all afternoon programming. For instance, let's hear what John King had to say on his show.
And just one last point. Jack Smith, remember when the classified documents target letter, when Trump announced that, there was a lot of commentary. Is Jack Smith making a mistake here? Is he leaving this all to Donald Trump? And then they released the indictment, and we all said, wow. We read it. We saw the documentation. We saw the level of detail. Jack Smith going to Subway today is a message to Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump tries to intimidate people. He tries to bully people. He tries to scare you away. That was Jack Smith with no words and a simple $5 sub in his hand saying, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, the imagery was intentional and spoke volumes.
It really is.
These are not serious people that we're dealing with. The imagery is unmistakable. He's sending a message. So if he had gone to Taco Bell, what kind of message would that have been? Right? He got a macho burrito. You know what that means? Oh. What if he had gone to, what if he had gone to, like a Gordon Ramsay fish and chips joint or something? I mean, he went to Hell's Kitchen. You know what that means?
If he got the All-American Club, which is apparently the most popular Subway sandwich. Well, now, that is a message.
Because it's All-American.
That's right.
It's 5:23.
Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
5:36 now. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. You know where we have to go get. We're under construction. People may hear noise sometimes.
Yeah. That
our studio's under construction, but it's great. It's fine. It's wonderful. Where we have to go get coffee now because they've relocated the break room and everything. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you're getting coffee, you can look right in at Barbara Britt when she's doing the news.
You did not annoy her,
Of course
did
I
you?
did.
Oh, my God, you're such a child.
I almost made her laugh right on the air, but she's a pro.
Terrible.
She wouldn't do that. But I should probably behave myself. I did a little hand puppet thing.
You should behave yourself, especially for Barbara.
I'm getting coffee. You're waiting for it to fill your cup.
Barbara's my favorite. Be nice.
Fabulous, Barbara Britt. Joining us later in the program here is at 6:35, it'll be Cal Thomas. 7:05, Matt Schlapp, and then at 7:35, Hans von Spakovsky. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock and Barbara Britt on news. Jamie Whitten on traffic. Anyone else? We're good. All right. So here's the latest attempt to criminalize being a Republican. The Attorney General of Michigan has now charged 16 Republican activists who had assembled as potential alternate electors to the Electoral College should Donald Trump's challenge to Michigan's voting process in 2020 be successful. Let me just lay out what happened here. There were a lot of challenges to what happened in Michigan with regard to mail-in voting, with regard to the extraordinary way the 2020 election was conducted because of the pandemic. And those challenges were going through the legal process. A lot of those challenges were going right up until, the day when the Electoral College would meet and determine who the president would be. And the Trump team in certain states had lined up alternate members of the Electoral College. Should these arguments be successful, these electors would then step in and they would be the new members of the Electoral College that would then vote for Donald Trump instead of Joe Biden, pending those legal decisions. They've criminalized that now.
What?
The Michigan Attorney General, and again, let's just be clear. This is 2.5 years after it happened, almost 3 years after this occurred. And just so coincidentally, on the same day that it's leaked that Jack Smith is targeting Donald Trump with regard to the January 6th events, the Attorney General also, and it's almost like it was coordinated.
Yeah, Dana Bash talked about sending a message.
Yeah.
This is a message. Don't ally yourself with Donald Trump. You, too, will be under investigation.
First of all, you know that the only way to really send a message like that is to go to Subway and get a footlong sandwich. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Attorney General Dana Nessel, Democrat, has now put forth the first criminal charges related to efforts by allies to the president to designate alternate slates of electors. You would think that this was not. By the way, some of the people who were charged here, an 81-year-old woman. You know who ends up being electors to the Electoral College? People who have donated, the people who have knocked on doors, people who have really. It's an honorary thing.
Yes,
they get to go and do it. An 81-year-old woman is now facing an indictment in the state of Michigan.
They do go after the grannies.
Yeah, well, they love doing it. Yeah. Also, Michon Maddock, former co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party. You know, we talk about how they're trying to criminalize being a conservative, criminalize being a Republican. This is what we mean.
I mean, are they Catholic on top of it?
Right.
Do they have kids in the public school?
It's absolutely abhorrent to everything that our nation stands for, and there's a reason for that, because they're trying to undermine everything that our nation stands for.
They charged them with a felony.
Oh, yeah.
With a maximum punishment ranging from 5 years in prison to some charges to 14 years on others. This is despicable.
So let's just be clear here. They're saying that this is illegal tampering in the 2020 election by putting forth these alternate electors to the Electoral College to potentially, you know, as they put it.
If the courts had ruled in Trump's favor.
But the way they put it is that this would overrule and undermine the will of the people of Michigan and their vote. It would be to circumvent the will of the people of Michigan, right? Because they're going up there and they're going to vote contrary to what the popular vote in the state of Michigan determined. That's their argument, okay?
Sure.
So if that's the case, we have some other suspects here that did the exact same thing in 2016. After Hillary Clinton conceded, and after it was clear that Donald Trump would be elected by the Electoral College when they assembled, we had these people step forward in 2016 and make the case that the members of the Electoral College should circumvent the will of the people in their state, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Wisconsin. You listen to this and you tell me if this is not, based on what Michigan has now determined, you tell me if this is not also illegal behavior.
Republican members of the Electoral College, this message is for you.
That's Martin Sheen, by the way.
Uh-huh.
You might not recognize all these. These are all Hollywood actors who put together this video.
Who many Democrats think it was actually the president at one point. Just FYI.
Yeah, exactly.
As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue and to ensure that the presidency only goes to someone who is to an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications.
By the way, when was the last time you heard a liberal quote the Federalist Papers?
It's rich.
An eminent degree. Someone who is highly qualified for the job.
The Electoral College was created specifically to prevent an unfit candidate from becoming president.
There are 538 members of the Electoral College. You
and just 36 other conscientious Republican electors can make a difference.
By voting your conscience on December 19th.
And thereby shaping the future of our nation.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton.
As you know, the Constitution gives electors the right to vote for any eligible person.
Any eligible person, no matter which party they belong to.
But it should certainly be someone you consider especially competent.
Especially competent to serve as President of the United States of America.
Oh, God, I miss these celebrity videos, don't
you?
Oh,
the music.
Oh, I know. And the overlapping dialogue, because they basically film them all saying the exact same script, and then they edit it for emphasis. It's just nauseating. But let's just be clear here. These are all Hollywood actors and actresses making this case, and it's very clear what they're doing. They're trying to coax Republican electors and members of the Electoral College to defy the will of the voters who put them in that place and vote for somebody other than Donald Trump.
Straight to jail.
And that is exactly what...
Martin Sheen. I want a perp walk. I want the whole
orange
thing.
jumpsuit.
Yep.
And
Handcuffs.
that chick from Will and Grace, whatever her name, Deborah Messing.
Her first.
Yeah. So they're all in this video, and that behavior, what I just played for you, that
totally fine
is felonious. No, yeah, but of course, yeah, that's right. By the way, a great hat tip to a gentleman on Twitter named Almost Jingo. Could be a woman, who knows? It's Twitter. But they discovered this video and drew it to my attention yesterday. It's a brilliant argument. Well done, you. And
round them up.
That's where we are.
Round them up.
Republican activists, members of the party in Michigan, now
81-year-old grandmothers.
They all got to lawyer up. They all got to defend themselves. Why? Because they dared to support Donald Trump. It's 5:44. It is hot. It's super hot across the country. It's also, by the way, the middle of July. And people are very concerned about the rising temperatures in places like Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. And may I just, before we get into the details of this, point out to you, if you hadn't noticed, that those places are all the desert. So it's pretty hot already, and then you add to that it's July. You know, when I lived in Southern California, I would often do a long weekend in Las Vegas at the end of July or early August. You could get rooms for $40 a night. You know why? Because it's the desert. It's hardly high season over there. People don't generally go there in the middle of the summer because
this story is terrifying, though.
That said,
this is unbelievable.
I know. I'm trying to complain about the people who are constantly like, oh, it's the end of the world because it's hot. No,
okay, I get it. But
that said, when it's over 110 degrees, you should probably sort of take certain protocols,
like use air conditioning
to protect yourself. And what happened on this airplane? This is a Delta Airlines flight, and it is horrific.
This makes me never want to fly again. Just for a second. Like this is the kind of thing. Like, where is the humanity? Okay, sorry. Lay it out. Tell
Passengers are on a flight. They were leaving Las Vegas for Atlanta on Delta. Can I repeat? This is Delta Airlines. This was on Monday. They had to be helped off. Temperatures at Harry Reid International Airport climbed to 115 degrees, but they were stuck on the tarmac.
3 hours.
3 hours.
Engine off.
With the engine off, because you got to preserve the energy. You got to be in the only way. So
Keep
they
the
have
gas.
no air conditioning.
No air. 3 hours. And this became like a teeny oven.
Well, and apparently people were not allowed to use the restrooms.
No.
Because,
babies
because at any moment they might give us the okay.
There were babies on this flight freaking out, crying, screaming. Passengers ended up, this is so awful.
They ended up soiling themselves. They were, I mean, it's like Biden visiting the Pope. It's like Joe Jonas giving a concert.
Stop. This is serious. This isn't one of our normal poopy pants episodes. This is like
there are some consistent
people
themes.
Passed out and then soiled themselves.
It's awful.
Because they were passed out. And they were baking. They were literally baking. The plane was 111 degrees.
Situation is said to have worsened, and flight attendants were seen running up and down the aisles with oxygen tanks because passengers were passing out. Now, I got to and thank you to the Daily Mail for a detailed write-up of this, including pictures and video from the event. Here's what I don't understand. And I know that there are FAA regulations, and I know that the corporation is in charge of the plane of protocols here, and I know that the airport has protocols and all that stuff. But I got to say, at some point, isn't the captain in charge of this vessel? Isn't the captain? If you are, and a lot of these guys are former military. A lot of these pilots, either Air Force or Navy aviators, and I got to think it's they got to know this is going on their plane, and at some point they've got to take command and just say, "We're going back to the airport.
Well,
you open up a gate right now, or roll out some stairs and get these people off of here," because eventually they did, right?
Oh, this is Krista Garvin, who's a producer at Fox News. She was on the flight, and so she gave she kind of live tweeted it.
Yeah,
she says finally decided to take everyone off because too many people were sick, and they wanted to try to cool down the plane, praying they let us back on, or we will be stuck here. I mean, can you imagine you go through this ordeal, you're sitting there for 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
And then they eventually go back to the gate and let everyone off. It's just cruel.
Honestly, I know that there are a lot of stories of passengers behaving badly, especially during the pandemic and doing things they shouldn't do. But this sort of thing, I would have gone full Flight 93 on this.
Oh, me too. I would have deployed that slide.
Exactly.
Deploy that slide.
I'm usually in the exit row.
Oh.
I would have looked at my boys and I would have said, "Are we ready? Let's do this thing." Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen is, I guess I understand I would have faced federal charges for doing something like
Otherwise,
that.
you soil yourself.
I would have helped save 200 people, including screaming, crying babies.
Yes.
And by the way, this literally is something Pete Buttigieg is in charge of.
Good point.
Where the hell is he?
Yeah. But
where
again,
the hell is he?
I'm so glad that you brought up, where's the captain?
Yeah.
And these flight attendants who are running, and believe me, all of my sympathy is with flight attendants.
Yes.
They're not in charge. The captain is ultimately in charge. I'm sure those flight attendants were talking to that captain. Why in the world they let it get this bad? I mean, they could have killed someone.
The only reason you sit on that tarmac and you wait for 3 hours is because your company's protocol is not to cancel the flight.
Yeah.
That is the only reason.
Yeah.
And I want to hope that pilot was in constant contact with the corporation, with Delta, saying we got to pull the trigger on this thing and cancel the flight. And he was vetoed, and he was over it. And again, I don't know how much autonomy, but my understanding is as soon as that door is closed and you pull away, the pilot is in charge, and ultimately they get to make all of these decisions.
They better make amends here. Delta better make amends here, because this is what happened to these people is inhumane.
Yeah. That said, as you hear more stories about how hot it is, and how horrible things are right now, and this could have been prevented. But just do bear in mind, this was Las Vegas.